This particular presentation is referring to musical haptices, how we can share musical experiences from a deaf-blind person's viewpoint. My name is Russ Palmer. I'm a music therapist and I'm English, and I qualified in Finland. I have two other colleagues here, Riitta Lahtinen, PhD, who is also my wife, and Stina, Ojala, PhD, and she's also a speech scientist. And I should just mention Riitta is also a communication researcher. So, what's it like for a deaf-blind person who may be wearing hearing aids, maybe no hearing aids, a little bit of vision, or no vision? Being able to go to, say, like a concert, performance, it could be a jazz group, a musical event, opera, some sort of art event that involves music and movements. And what we'd like to do is to share with you our experiences, how we can portray this using social haptic communication. From a deaf-blind person point of view, I have Usher syndrome, and I wear two cochlear implants. First one I had in 2004, and the second one in 2011. I'm also a music therapist, which is a little bit unusual perhaps. And I play with the guitar and piano. I also sing and write my own music. And I do research work with some university. It's taken me on a very long journey to get to that process. But one of the things I've noticed is that when you go to performance, if you can't see, like my vision is gone now since 2015, so I can't see what is on stage. I can't see the movements, what's happening to the performance, or if there's dancing, or if there's an opera, and how we can illustrate all these different little information going on through an art performance. And I'm very musical, so I want to know what's going on. And in the course of this presentation, we will show to you some of our experiences of illustrating instruments, illustrating sound, movements, and also the whole aesthetic experience, especially where the movement's concerned. If there's two people dancing, how would an interpreter portray that information for a deaf-blind person? How would you portray, say, a trumpet or clarinet or strings from an orchestra? Or if you're going to a rock heavy metal band, they may be very outlandish sort of colourful clothes, or guitars, drums, etc. So these are some of the things that are very important for a deaf-blind person to get this equality experience. And it really started from when I went to a concert, and through my colleagues with both Riitta and Stina, we all started to analyze. I thought, this is interesting. How can we do this? So in a moment, Riitta will be talking about the theoretical background, and then Stina will be talking about some of the aspects from an interpreting viewpoint as well. Now, as I said, I was qualified in 1999 as a music therapist in Finland, but at that time I only had hearing aids. So my hearing started to deteriorate, and then I had the cochlear implants. And when I started to have cochlear implants, I found my musical perception change as well. I was actually able to follow a musical performance much more detailed in the different tonal ranges, from low, middle, and high ranges, to hearing a triangle, or hearing the strings, hearing the drums and percussion, things like this. And even when I'm singing now, I find my singing voice has actually improved. The only trouble is I just wish I was 20 years younger, because I'm now 64. But anyway, I still compose, I still write my own music, I still play and do performances from time to time. I'm now going to pass you over to Riitta, who will explain more about the social haptic background theory.
And Russ, what is your sign name?
Oh yes, sorry. My sign name is Russ, like that.
Okay, so hi all. My name is Riitta Lahtinen, and I'm Finnish, and my sign is Riitta, so it's a smile. Social haptic communication started very early 1990s when I was starting to plan my PhD work. I was planning to do it at hands-on signing, but then when I met Russ, my life changed. And when we started to live together, I noticed that I got a lot of touch messages on my body. And I also started to do a lot of messages for you, Russ. We were using spoken language, we were using a radio microphone, finger spelling, lip reading. When you didn't have your hearing aids in dark situation, we used already hands-on signs. But then we had a situation where we were in dark situation, or when Russ, you didn't have your equipments on and your hands were occupied, or for example, just in the kitchen when you were washing dishes. And we started to think about that. How about, is there more deafblind people, perhaps their partners in the family or interpreting or assistants, who are giving and sharing touch messages? So we started to travel around in Northern Europe and collecting these messages. And we noticed that people have them, and but they were not talking about them quite a lot. So we collected them and started to analyze, and we made that first level of touch messages, what we call haptices. And when I was doing my research work, it took me 18 years to start to develop in different kind of aspects. So how about if we go to situation like Russ, you said that you like to see face expressions. So we started to look about face expressions, how we can portray them. Or if you are watching a football game, or you are going to doing any hobbies like horse riding. So how do you give messages if you can't hear so well in those situations?
And also, if I may come in there,
Yeah.
I think since that's the basis of social haptic communication, what we found over the years is that we're now starting to have these little subgroups of social haptic communication for specialist areas.
Yeah.
And I think music haptices was really a branch of one of those.
Yes, exactly. So now I was talking about those who are using hearing aids, but then we were starting to teach them people who are using hands-on signing. And nowadays, all deafblind groups are using haptices already. I think that around the world, you could have like two hands-on signers who at the same time when they are signing can actually give some haptices to each other. When it started with acquired deafblindness, then I started to look about congenitally born deafblind children. And that group, they have done all different kind of messages to the body quite a long time. But what they was lacking was the grammar. And the grammar is the key that we are using them the same way. So grammar, I mean that when I touch Russ and I'm saying yes, so it is that we have the movement there, we have a certain location, we have the speed, we have this pressure, and so on. Exactly the same way that we have spoken language or sign language. They have their own grammar elements. So haptices have their own grammar, and we call them haptemes. So different kind of client groups can use haptices in different situations. And for example, Russ, when you change your hearing aids to cochlear implants, you wanted to use your memory about the sound, but you needed to have that implant hearing for that you can hear the instruments. So we couldn't talk the same time. But how could we actually portray about the instruments? And that started about this musical haptices itself.
And if I can come in here, I remember very clearly, because I'm a Beach Boys fan, like Good Vibrations. I'm giving you good vibration. She's giving me the excitations. Now, I remember going to see Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys before the cochlear implant, because at that time, in 2006, whatever it was, he was just releasing his new Smile album. And he was singing Good Vibrations on that time. And I do remember seeing them perform before cochlear implants. And I could hear the good vibration because I knew the song. But I had a lot of problems trying to hearing all of the words and all of the musical instruments. Then when I went to see the second performance, I was really blown away when I had a cochlear implant and one hearing aid, because I said, Riitta, I can hear everything. I can hear all the words, I can hear all the different tonal ranges, the instrumentation, etc. So it gave me a whole new experience. And that's really where it all started to come together, I think.
In the beginning, you said that different events, and many times there's music, but there's also visual things like dancing or performances. So how does social haptics, how do I haptier to the body? Because usually we use neutral areas, so it can be the shoulder or the arm. Agreed. And how about Russ? Can I just use your back?
Yeah, just move a bit.
Yeah, so we can see the camera. Yeah, okay. I just use on your left shoulder area here. Yeah. Okay. How about Russ, that now we are in a music event and there are dancing or dancers coming, and you know the context that there is going to be a dance. Can you translate us? What do you feel here? How you translate these haptices, which are already sentences? So it is like a language for us already when I'm describing that. I can use spoken language, I can use signing, but I can also haptier that to your back. Okay, Russ.
Two people on stage, walking towards the front and standing opposite each other. Now they are dancing.
Do you recognize?
Maybe a waltz.
A waltz. I was just thinking that. Do I have?
Now, what Riitta is doing, which you may not be able to see so well, is that she's applying pressure like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, to signify the rhythm of the dance. Now they've stopped. Now the music's changed. Something a bit more lively. Could be a disco, perhaps. Very, very fast disco, could be heavy metal or whatever. Now they're flat on the floor because they're worn out. So that's just a demonstration of how an interpreting situation you can incorporate some aspects of movements and some of the visual things. And that can be, sometimes it may be better in some cases to stand up.
Yeah.
Because if they're doing a very close dance, then your interpreter might have to put your leg against their leg against your leg to show that this is now very close, maybe like a tango or something like this, or very romantic. And
I was using that shoulder area here, in a small area because of the camera aspect, but I
normally I'd be on the whole back.
Whole back, So that is one example how we can use also the back, because that can give you the visual aspect, what you then combine to that experience, what you are having, Russ, perhaps listening to your hearing aids, or what you can listen to your implants, or what perhaps you can feel through the vibrations. But that is like a combined different kind of sensory experience.
Now our bodies can feel vibrations from different aspects of music, particularly if it's very heavy rock music, disco music, or African music, whatever. But you can also feel other aspects, which we'll be talking about in another presentation in more detail. But now it comes to the point where how would you illustrate some of these aspects of musical instrumentation? So maybe appropriate now to.
I will now
turn the camera now to Stina.
The camera to a new colleague. Okay.
Settle down a bit. Right. Okay. That's you.
Hello, I'm Stina, and I'm the colleague who's talking about the acoustical side of the musical event.
So
and you just said it. But my sign name is this, Stina. So Riitta had a very lively explanation of the visual side of things, And Russ, you are able to hear some of the acoustical elements from the music, and also feel some of them through your chair or the venue structures.
Exactly.
But me as Russ's colleague and also an interpreter, so I can demonstrate some of the acoustical elements from the orchestra. So I can use, for example, Russ's upper arm here, or the whole arm, or the top of the hand, to illustrate the orchestra sounds of the orchestra. I can follow a single melody from a solo instrument using the upper arm. I can simultaneously use the lower arm to tap the rhythm if there is a single or a single or a bass rhythm.
Yeah.
And then I can also use the holistic dynamics of the orchestra using the whole hand, whether it's very dramatic or more quieter tones.
So, for example, if there's strings, how would you show that?
Strings.
Yeah. So if there's
Well,
like a violin.
If there's a violin,
yeah.
It would be here on the upper arm.
Yeah. And if it's, say, a whole string orchestra playing?
Whole string orchestra. Well, it would be both the lower arm and the upper arm.
Yeah.
But then when the brasses come, then it would be more dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you show, say, like a trumpet?
Trumpet would be a different movement.
Right.
So when the string haptices is from it's like swaying movement on your upper arm,
Like the bowing.
or the bowing,
Yeah.
or the plucking of the strings, both on upper arm, if it's a violin. But if it's a cello, then it moves to the lower part of your arm, because it's a lower range, acoustical range. So here you've got both the elements of how does one play the instrument and what is its acoustical range, both incorporated into one single haptice. But it has the haptimes of the location, whether there's acoustical range is high on the upper arm or low on the lower arm. It has the haptime of the use of the instruments and the way and the manner of
How heavy or light?
or how heavy or light it is.
Yeah.
So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 elements all incorporated into one single message.
Yeah.
In touch.
So how about Stina? I have seen you and Russ working in a listening whole orchestra.
Yes.
So what is that? How is that possible?
Because
Well,
there's lots of aspects.
Yes, there's lots of, so I'm giving you glimpses of what can be done. But usually if there's a whole symphonic orchestra, I actually zoom it down to Russ's hand, use this upper hand to show the whole range of the orchestra. So here you have the strings, you got the cellos, you got the double basses, you got the French horn and the brass on the top of the fingers. So here you have the seating places of the orchestra.
The location where the instruments are.
Exactly.
And I think that's quite important there, because interpreters, if they're illustrating or demonstrating to the clients the actual layout of the orchestra, they first would need to say, okay, we've got the strings on one side, let's assume the strings are here, the cellos, the violins, working round to the other woodwind, woodwind, percussion is at the back.
Yeah.
So you can use the hand in different aspects.
Yes.
As a sort of starting point.
Yeah.
And then you're doubly using up this.
Yes.
Well.
And Russ, I remember the times that you used to be able to see, and you enjoyed this very much because you could actually zoom with your eyes and your gaze to watch what they were doing when they were sitting close to the orchestra.
So it was almost like a directional.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And if there's a particular nice melody line or something that, like if you take, for example, Dvorak New World Symphony, which has a very distinct melody.
Yes.
Ba, 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 ba. So Stina would actually illustrate the sort of the melody flowing
yeah.
up and down, and also the pitch range, starting
Yes.
from low to high.
Right, yes. Yeah, so and then of course all these can be expanded through the Russ's upper back, just like Riitta demonstrated with their dance.
Yeah.
And when you are actually in a ballet, so it could happen so that I would depict the acoustical elements onto Russ's arm, and Riitta would be using Russ's either the other arm or then the upper back or both for the dance.
Yeah.
So it all can be combined together.
Yeah. So Russ, may we ask that how do you combine this information about your auditive information and then these haptices, if there's like two people producing that for you?
I think it's really like teamwork. If say a deafblind person has two interpreters, you would define their roles. Perhaps one person would define the instrumentation or the rhythm first on the back, and then the other person would perhaps do the melody line or actually show the dance part in front of you. So showing, sort of physically, you have your hand on that person's body and you feel the movements taking shape. So it just depends on, you just need to be very clear what roles each person plays. But I don't sort of subconsciously think, oh, right, what's happening here? I just pick out the things I want. And I think that's something people maybe get confused with. It's too much information. For some people, it may be. But for others, particularly if you're musical like me, I like to know what's going on. I like to know everything what's going on as much as possible. So my interpreters may end up being totally exhausted, especially if it's very lively in performance.
Yeah. But basically, Russ, you are doing a synthesis in your brain of all things that are happening.
Exactly.
And what do you get? You get a holistic picture of the event. How does it make you feel?
I feel fine. It's like the Beatles, and I feel fine. I just take it all in my stride. But one thing I want to ask Riitta, Haptine, how would you say the musical Haptine, musical Haptices? Did it also has Haptine's elements as well, didn't it?
Yes, of course. And Stina was explaining them to you already.
The
location, the pressure, the movements and rhythmical elements. Pauses and everything actually is almost like the musical language to your arm.
Exactly.
So you're portraying that because you have the musical knowledge. Perhaps for you can combine at the same time so many different aspects of it so easily. Because I think that it can take a little bit, or I say many years for people to develop that stage of you are.
But also from a non-musician point of view, I mean, how does that pose problems for you, particularly not so musical, say? How do you get around that problem?
Then we will look about the knowledge about music or vibration, and then we add haptices, what knowledge you have already, and build up on that, depending if you are deafblind or if you are sign language user. Perhaps then you just have the rhythmical elements there. So it could be a little bit different for you and then for sign language user, but it's the same area of, it's the same thing that you are picking up certain kind of words or certain kind of signs, but it's social haptic communication. And at the end, I was just thinking that I just like to show us, this is social haptic communication, Haptimes and Haptimes book. If people are interested to know more about it, this is my thesis, and 2008.
25 years ago.
Oh dear. 15 years ago.
Oh, sorry, 50.
15 years ago.
15.
But 30 years about when we started that. And I just want to show you one more of, in English, environmental description, because this could be one starting point of people to think about using haptices and environmental description, like how we portray about the visual aspect of things. So if people would like to come to contact to us, how to do that, Russ?
Well, if you visit our website, you can see a lot of wealth information. There's split into two sections, so social haptic communication, and also my part as well on music and vibroacoustics and musical vibrations. And there are also abstract, some of the articles we published which you may get access to. If anybody's interested, I just released this, my new CD, which is called Loving Touch. It's instrumental, 2 guitars. And again, if people want to know more about this, please drop me a line.
Yeah. And then on the first slide, we have also our own email address there.
Yeah.
So you can send us an email
That's right.
if this question and answering time, we don't have possibilities to talk, but please send us a message and we will answer for you.
Yeah, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for listening. Hope we haven't confused you and enjoy the conference.